Welcome back to Anything Outdoors with Steve. It was just recently pointed out by Marcus Patterson 35 that I do not have a takedown and reassembly of this. So I've got about 6 minutes on this memory card, so I'm going to try to make this real quick. So as I'm talking, I'm doing this. I've already cleared it. You guys don't have to worry about getting shot. Oh my gosh. So as I mentioned before, I still haven't fixed this. The little spring keeper is broken and gone. I haven't had too much trouble with it missing there, and so I've been just operating it as it is without that keeper. Since this is a beveled edge, there is the potential of the spring binding up on this beveled edge, but I have yet to experience that. So as most already know, the fore end comes off with just this, and then you undo the knurled nut here. This has been a while since I've taken this apart. I might be learning this myself all over again. So let's go ahead and take this chamber flag out. And as I remember, this was kind of a butt to get the barrel out, so you just I use the spring pressure to remove the barrel. You can do whatever you need to do to get it out, but once it's kind of rammed out of there a bit, you can walk off the barrel. You've got the barrel, the gas piston, and that is your basic disassembly. Now, as far as your bolt, this handle has to be in the right spot, or the bolt, I should say, has to be in the right spot for the handle to pull out. And I've had a little bit of a issue getting that out before, and I don't remember. Oh yes, now I do. The handle has to be centered, so there's a little notch here right in the middle of the bolt, and that notch has to line up with a little lobe on this handle. And once you've got that, then you can walk it out, but it takes quite a bit of force. It's a little bit more than my fingers are able to pull up on, but so I usually have to use the leverage of something to kind of get a good grip on it. I do remember this being a butt though. There we go. Man, that really digs in. So once you've got the charging handle removed, the bolt, spring, and slide action, including the buffer, all come out. I tend to like to lay things out so that way you don't lose track of what's what. My hands are going to get quite dirty with this because I have not cleaned it either. That is everything that we've got here. The only thing left is the trigger assembly. For this, you just get a punch set and find the right size, and you drive this pin straight on through. Since I've got this raised up I've got these on an ammo can, so there's a little raised groove here, so I'm able to just drive this straight down a bit. There we go. And as you can see, this pin just drives straight through. And your trigger assembly should then pull up and out. And I don't remember exactly what all was required. Oh, okay, now I do. Okay, you drive it forward, then up and out. And that's your entire trigger assembly here. Now there's no real reason to disassemble this further. If you do, there's a pin and spring right here that runs your hammer. And you've got several springs that run the trigger group as well. And that is your overall disassembly. I can see I've got some, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but I've got some flakes of metal in there, some aluminum. And I can already see where it's coming from. And right here, the bolt is shaving the top of the receiver a bit. It's not a horrible ordeal. Well, let's take a look at the bolt. Yeah, so it's probably right here on the bolt that's actually shaving that a bit, or the back of it. If you want to, you can remove the firing pin, but that's again another pin to remove, which you have to drive this pin down through, and that will release your firing pin. With that comes the spring and this little block detent. Again, there's no real reason to do so unless you've broken your firing pin. But this is your basic teardown, so it doesn't take a whole lot of time. Getting it back together is probably a different story. The bolt has to line up just right on this slide plate, and you can see how it operates the lock. So when it's in battery, it locks the bolt in place. If you look here, you've got two little lobes on the end of the operating rods here, and those two lobes sit right under this cut recess right here. So with the bevel cut facing towards the receiver, this rolls right into place. So you've got the two dog ears, they sit into the detent, and it rolls right in place, so it fits nice and flush, and that sits right over your magazine tube. And so you just roll it right in one piece without losing your bolt. That bolt is just sitting on there with imagination. Before you do this though, don't forget to put this plate on like I just did. Plate first, then slide this down. And like I say, that bolt's held on by imagination, so don't tilt it upside down. We're just going to slide this on down in. There we go. So that has charging handle is next, and that locks everything in place. Remember, this little lobe of the bolt has to be right in the middle for the charging handle to go in as well. Make sure you've got it facing the right direction, so pull backwards. So that little lobe right here on the bolt has to line up with the notch right in the middle of that bolt, and it clicks right in place, and that keeps the bolt from flying forward. Okay, so just make sure everything runs smooth before you continue on from this point. So we've got everything in place there. Next, buffer. Follow-up is your gas piston and then your barrel. So the barrel just slides right on the tube as well. You have to line it up just right with the receiver. You don't have to worry about the trigger group. I mean, it can be put in at any point, taken out at any point. But everything has to line up just right with this barrel for it to go in. And it doesn't want to right now, so let's try it again. If you drive that bolt forward, it allows the barrel to slip right on past. There we go. And make sure it's all the way in. You want to have no gap between the barrel and receiver there. So all the way in. And then you can run your little knurled nut down. It's got little grooves on one side, and that helps keep it in place without walking out. That is not the ideal system. It doesn't lock in place really well. I've had these already start to walk off after maybe 50 rounds, but you can feel it kind of grab a little bit as you're running it down, but it just doesn't grab as good as I'd like. But that is your basic reassembly there. Trigger group is next. You just want to line up the back first with this little cutout, and it should just push right down in and back. There it is. And it's got to go down a little bit more. As you're putting this in, the loading gate wants to grab on your bolt release. So you have to press your bolt release in, and that allows it to drop all the way in. And then you can put your pin in. The pin has a little lobe to match my punch. This has a little round ball on the end of the punch. So I'm driving that lobe, that little divot recess of the pin back through the same way it came out. And just lightly tap that back in. If it starts binding up, stop tapping, make sure it's lined up right. and nice and flush on both sides. It does actually protrude out maybe a couple thousandths of an inch on both sides, but that's the way it's supposed to be. So then you put your fore end back on, and it just slides down all the way. Make sure it lines up perfectly with this holder here on the back side, because it will jump over and not fit in perfectly. So I like to make sure it's all the way down in before forcing anything. And this is like a two-piece fore end, so it's got another little part here that fits around the fore end and the magazine tube. So just slide that all the way in, make sure it's good before you continue. Make sure that's seated in properly, because it will either go up or down a little bit and cause you a little grief. And when you're putting on the threaded end here, it will actually force it down in and notch the plastic, so that's no good. Magazine spring next. Since I don't have a keeper, I have to kind of hold this in place with the magazine end here, and so I just put it on like so, and then just thread her in. Sorry if I didn't get that on camera, but I was fighting the spring a little bit. And again, before you tighten this all the way, make sure everything is in real nice. Don't force it, because it will mar up the plastic. And nice and tight. Make sure everything operates just fine before you're all done. And I don't like to dry fire, so I just run the bolt back a little bit and pull the trigger, drop the hammer on the bolt. There we go, and bolt release. There we go, everything looks good. Hopefully that works for you. Sorry I was a little late on that, and I apologize for not having the teardown on this firearm before, because I kind of did omit that, and I didn't realize it. This whole time I thought I had done it, and I really hadn't. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to join us for other firearm adventures.